introduce very special guests this evening, but Governor Wolf does not want to change because certain school districts are paying a school bill through a provision called hold harmless. And with us this evening is State Representative in the 120th District, Aaron Kaufer, to speak about hold harmless.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks. I'm glad I could be here. Sorry I'm running just a few minutes late here. But I do want to cover just a few, Charlie was talking here about Governor Wolf's proposal. The moral of the story of what Governor Wolf is doing is an $8 billion tax hike to give $3.6 billion back for property tax relief. That is not the type of plan we're looking for. $8 billion is 2/3 of the way there to the $12 billion that we're talking about school property tax elimination. Governor Wolf's proposal has used outlines similar to that of House Bill and Senate Bill 76. It is based on similar outlines that have been proposed, but doesn't go the rest of the way for elimination. There's no cost controls in place in Governor Wolf's proposal. There is nothing to prevent, if we reduce property taxes now, all it's going to be is a slight increase once again. There is no way of protecting you over the long term. It gives a short-term solution to something that needs to be a long-term solution. I agree with what the gentleman just said. It is a discriminatory tax. It's an unconstitutional tax, in my opinion. And if we're not being proactive about that, it's at the heart of the debate right now. And we're talking a 6.6% sales tax with what Governor Wolf proposed. We want it just a tiny bit more to the 7% level. 0.4%, you're right. Same thing with the personal income tax. Most of the way there, tiny bit more for the elimination. We are going to be in the midst of discussions as we go forward, because I've heard a lot of representatives change their tune all of a sudden, especially on the other side of the aisle, about the framework that was previously called House Bill, Senate Bill 76. Now all of a sudden people are changing their tune because the Democratic governor has now proposed it. Their tune about the framework of the proposal. We need the cost controls put in place, and without doing a full elimination, there is no cost controls put in place. Hold harmless was the reason I was asked to be here tonight, and I want to make sure that we cover what hold harmless does. I just spoke last night to the Wyoming Area School Board about what hold harmless does across our state. We fund education today based on the student population numbers in 1990, 1991. We don't fund education in 2015 based on the student population numbers today, but the student population numbers 25 years ago. It doesn't make any sense. Hold harmless was thought up of because we had a lot of change and where people were moving to. People were moving outside of the cities, moving to the suburbs. So they'd rather live in the suburbs but work in the city. This is a way of helping to keep the baseline of education funding. Meanwhile, we haven't changed anything in the last 25 years. Meanwhile, as we've seen huge growth in the suburbs around Philly, around Pittsburgh, our area for the most part has stayed relatively stable when it comes to student population numbers. Relatively. Our stability actually hurts us in our student population numbers because of the huge declines in other parts of the state, such as inner city Philly, within Pittsburgh, within Harrisburg, within a lot of these city elements that have seen huge declines in student population numbers. At the heart of this entire property tax discussion is the idea of this hold harmless. They are not separate ideas. They are very much linked in the basic education funding formula that is currently being reviewed by a basic ed funding commission right now in our state. They're reviewing how we currently fund education in a 2015 world, but based on 1990s numbers. I think we can all agree a lot's changed since the 90s. In the early 90s, most people didn't have computers in their homes in the U.S. Today, pretty much everybody has a computer in their home. Well, a lot's changed. At that time, the Cold War was just ending. A lot has changed. But we're still funding education in Pennsylvania, in our Commonwealth, the same way we were 25 years ago. This Basic Ed Funding Commission is getting ready to release its information over the coming months based on what their proposals are for revamping our education system, which should be based on our population numbers now. I think it's pretty basic. If you ask anybody, just that premise, should we fund education based on student population numbers 25 years ago? You'd be pretty hard pressed to find somebody who would say yes. That's what we're doing in our state. The reason we're seeing the property tax problems we are is twofold. Really, one major one, because of this hold harmless provision that's harming our area, and the second one because of the pension crisis we're experiencing right now. In our state, this year we have to come up with an extra $500 million out of our $30 billion budget. $500 million this year. If and when we come up with that $500 million, next year we have to come up with another $700 million on top of that, out of our $30 billion budget. They're not simple solutions going forward, but these are the reasons why our costs of our property tax are going through the roof. I want you to understand, it's not simple stuff. It's good. When it comes to this hold harmless, you say, well, just get rid of it, right? It's that simple. Just get rid of it. And I do wish it was that simple. And in the coming time, we will be, and I will personally write legislation to address it, and I'm sure others will as well. But because of this hold harmless provision, more representatives, if you look at our 203 representatives, their school districts benefit from the hold harmless provision than are hurt by it. So you're now asking a representative now to take money out of their school district. Not an easy decision for somebody to do. But the fact of the matter is, it's hurting our area. It's hurting those suburbs around Philly, the suburbs around Pittsburgh. But the vast majority of the state, a majority of the state is benefiting from this hold harmless provision. So what do we have ahead of us? In the coming months, as I mentioned, the Basic Education Funding Commission is going to be announcing its findings that they have in their report. It will be at the heart of discussion in Governor Wolf's budget, including his proposal, which will also be a second major point going forward. I don't think there is a lot of support for his current proposal. Like I said, he's raising taxes $8 billion under the auspice of property tax relief, but only giving $3.6 billion back in property tax relief. Certainly echoes a lot of what we remember with the casino money that was in our area. That's in the back of our mind. That's exactly what this is. It's a smoke and mirror. So going forward, there are some big things on our agenda. There's no shortage. There's going to be a lot of discussion on education going forward. But it's important that we understand as we go forward. I hope hold harmless is something that we become accustomed with. It's not something we read in the newspaper that often. I don't think I've ever seen it in the newspaper talking about property tax or anything like that. But it's at the heart of the discussion. And it's glazed over every time we talk about this. This is the reason why we're seeing so much of the tension between why we're so upset that nobody else is doing anything in our area. It's because of this hold harmless. And I think it's something that when Dave Baldinger comes in the near future, I hope he'll address it. I haven't heard Dave talk about hold harmless before. Jim Cox, who is the prime sponsor of 76, he speaks about the importance of hold harmless in regard to property taxes all the time. I'm not sure what Dave Baldinger's perspective is on it. I haven't heard him speak on it before. But Jim Cox, who is the prime sponsor of House Bill Senate Bill 76, is very vocal on this. And it's really the underlying issue to what's going on. Going forward, as we get ready to go back to session next week, we're approaching the end of our appropriations hearings, our budget hearings, for what Governor Wolf has proposed in his budget. And every day we find out more stuff that's in there that we didn't know was in there, but that's a daily occurrence. But there is certainly a lot of tension with what he has proposed versus where the legislature's at. It's going to be an ongoing dialogue. I don't think it's going to be an easy path going forward because Governor Wolf, I know, at times has said that he does not support 76 or doesn't support elimination. At different occasions he said that before. But the outlines he has used is a baseline, the framework of 76. Is he willing to go that extra little bit? And are my colleagues willing to join with me in going that extra little bit to fully eliminate school property taxes? I don't know. I wish I had the answer for you.
Well, Terry Madonna stated half a loaf he's given us, why didn't he go to whole thing?
And that's exactly it. Governor Wolf is saying that we're now going to fund education at a 50% level from the state. We want to go the rest of the way. Let's get 100% from the state. Let's get it done. Get off the backs of property owners and get it to the level where everybody has a little skin in the game. Thank you, everybody. I'll take
Question,
yeah.
I have one question.
Our board of directors.
Hang on one second, Charlie.
That's a very important
I'll get you next.
question.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Aaron, last night you were at the meeting. From what I hear, you made a statement that it's going to be a long, drawn-out affair.
In the budget negotiation, yes.
So what time period do you feel as though, like, you've been on the floor, you talked to senators, do you see anything happening soon or no?
So the budget's supposed to be passed June 30th.
Right,
That's the budget time. In between now and then, hopefully we'll get a budget done on time. We're hoping for that. In between now and then, we have to come up with some formula for funding education. It's in our Constitution that as a state, we have to provide a quality education.
right.
So between now and then, the discussion on education is going to heat up a lot. Just recently, there was a bill put forward today, and I've been in meeting basically all day. I've been running all around.
Right.
There was a new bill that was put forward by Representative Saylor, who is the
Right.
chairman of the Education Committee. I personally have not had a chance to review it yet, so I'm not sure what's in the bill, what it's proposing. I wish I could tell you what was in it right now, but it just came out today. And like I said, I go pretty thoroughly through it. I read the entire bill before I start making comments on it.
Right,
But from my understanding so far, it is not an elimination bill.
right.
It is a relief bill, not an elimination bill. So,
Hey, one more question for
Yeah.
you. You were at the school board meeting last night, I wasn't there. But Wyoming Area School Board went out and hired an outside firm. They paid $45,000. He can comment on it. They paid $45,000 to make cuts in the school district to save and reduce property tax. They're $18 million in the hole. Well, guess what? These guys talk. They showed pictures, but there wasn't $1 sign shown on how much they can save on shutting down a Diamond School up in Harding or another school down by the high school. But why not? You were hired $45,000 and they didn't give $1 for it. You know what this is? Politics. The school board election time is coming up, and they're going to sit back and say, "Oh, we can't do nothing now until after the election." You'll comment on it and ask them, was there any dollar signs given?
no, not that when I got there, I did not see any dollar signs. There was a presentation that I walked in during the middle of, so I can't say for sure I was there for the whole thing. But, in what's going on, I think we're all sick of this don't make waves mentality of politics. What you're commenting on is because every year is an election year, right? For instance, I was elected to a 2-year term, right? This is the year, all of a sudden next year's campaign time all over again. I think I'm a big government reform guy. I know this isn't the venue for it, but the fact is that our politicians are constantly worried about getting reelected and not doing the things that they were elected for. And I think we oftentimes get those two confused with one another, because the special interests, as we know, the list that's against the property tax bill that we're talking about, against 76 is lengthy. There's no doubt about that. Those are the people going around funding the campaigns.
No, it's just possible. I read it to the group here before you come in.
Yeah.
Montgomery County, it was the appropriation committee hearing, Stuart Greenleaf. Montgomery County, under the proposal, will receive $242.5 million in tax benefits as a result of the proposal. Greenleaf told Wolf's budget secretary during Monday's hearing that the bad news is the residents of Montgomery County are going to pay $500 million in increased income income tax and sales tax. Is that possible?
Yeah, you know,
Under his
I
proposal?
I don't know about the numbers in Montgomery County. I have some of them for Luzerne County, that we have. Let me just pull them up, give me 1 second. Some of the numbers that we're looking at, I mean, for instance, let's take Wyoming Valley West, where we're at right now.
Right.
The overall taxes that, in his plan, will be paying an extra $2.26 million in taxes in Wyoming Valley West. Wyoming area, an extra $2.6 million in taxes. Basically, every place in my district, personally, Dallas School District, basically an extra $8 million in taxes. Lake Lehman, an extra 4.5 roughly million dollars in taxes. His plan, as he's gone around saying, it's tax relief. Tax relief. You're raising $8 billion to give back $3.6 billion.
That won't solve the problem.
If we take that $8 billion and dedicate it specifically to school property taxes, we're only $4 billion away. We're almost there. And like I said, with a few tweaks of the numbers, we can get to property tax elimination. Governor Wolf he's put forward a bold agenda. It's bold, but it's not bold for the property tax owners. It's bold on raising taxes.
Aaron, is he trying to give a curveball here? Wolf's budget includes 80% tax cut for Scranton businesses. How could he give tax cuts to the businesses if all the school districts are under?
Yeah, it's interesting what he's trying to do. And I'm actually learning more about this right now. One of the things that he proposes is doing combined reporting with businesses. So if a business operates in Pennsylvania, but their headquarters is somewhere else, requiring the businesses of their operations in Pennsylvania to pay taxes on it.
Right.
Right now, they report from their home state, whatever it's from, or home
Right.
country, whatever it is. But his proposal says if you're operating a business in Pennsylvania, you're going to pay Pennsylvania taxes.
Right.
So by using that, we have the highest corporate net income tax rate. It's 9.99%. By using this combined reporting, he wants to use that money to lower the overall corporate net tax structure. So his goal is to go from 9.99 to 4.99, using the revenues from that to create a more business-friendly environment in our state.
Right.
One other thing, since the last time I was here, that we did in the House, we passed a homestead exemption, allowing for up to 100% property tax reduction, aka elimination, if we reduce it 100%. It would require a constitutional amendment. We passed the amendment via the House. It's now in the Senate. I don't believe the Senate has taken it up yet. But if it passes the Senate, and it passes the House, it has to be 2 consecutive sessions and it goes on the ballot.
Right.
Then it would be up to us to vote for it. So there is sort of a backup plan sort of being run right now, specifically to target homeowners, to allow for that 100% exemption. There is a backup plan that we're working through right now. We passed that already, but once again, it is a constitutional amendment, so it takes time to get it done.
It's not going to be like our county homestead act, was it? They give it a couple
Well,
years.
actually,
take
believe it or
back.
not, within the same, I think it was the same week that they got rid of their homestead exemption.
Right.
This bill came out to allow for 100% homestead exemption
Right.
from the state. So it's kind of interesting to being from Luzerne County and seeing they're getting rid of theirs, we're trying to allow it.
Right.
Sort of this balancing act
Yeah.
going on. Charlie, you had a question?
Yes, Aaron, I don't know if you're aware of this. It says the Pennsylvania State House Representatives introduced a new bill, House Bill 808. Are you familiar with that?
Is this Stan Saylor's bill?
It says, it's a similar bill was passed, but it didn't pass. And it could answer the next state's budget. And it says the net profits are shared by 3 groups. Both the licensed establishment, which includes the restaurants and the bars and the terminal operator that owns and services the video terminals, would get 3% each of the net profit. The state general fund would get 34% of net profit. The proposed video gaming bill, like the table games bill, doesn't contribute a dime to the property tax.
So we had a hearing on the video game terminal machines, which, if you go to to a lot of these local bars, it's very much different from what we're talking about, but it could tie in with what we're talking about. So let me just go through it a tiny bit. So if you go to a small bar, corner bar, now a dive bar or a corner bar or something like that, a lot of times they'll have those machines, you put a buck in, they have the things turn, right? Those machines, we're aware of what I'm talking about. A lot of them are out there already.
Yeah.
We know they're out there, places have them, they're technically illegal. They're not supposed to be there. Well, they're allowed to be there for amusement.
Right.
But we know you go and show the bartender, they come and pay you out. Right now, that's technically illegal. We had a sting a couple years ago where they got rid of a lot of these machines. Some places have them back. What this would do, it's a proposal that's coming through the Gaming Oversight Committee to allow this and collect a state share. Because right now the state isn't getting anything from these machines, they call gray machines.
Yeah, but it says if this bill goes, if this goes through and all that, none of the money is allocated for property tax really.
The money has not been allocated. They haven't even, the bill, it hasn't even come up to the committee yet for a vote. It has been discussed, it hasn't been amended, there hasn't been a formal discussion on it, besides we had a hearing on it, but there hasn't been a formal discussion in the House on it. There is a tax portion that has to come to the state, which it's estimated that portion could be somewhere near $1 billion. Me personally, I think those numbers are a little high. That's just me speaking personally. That's Aaron Kaufer, that's not representative, that's me personally just looking at it and saying, all of a sudden, we're gonna come up with $1 billion overnight. I have a hard time believing that that's going to be the numbers.
Yeah, I believe it's
That's
another Rendell.
Considering we have a $30 billion budget, if you put that in perspective, all of a sudden raising $1 billion from that seems very high, me personally. It's still going through, it's still in consideration. It's gonna be coming up to the committee soon. My estimation is that if it's an easy way to raise revenue without raising taxes, it probably will go through.
Right.
But the money hasn't been discussed of if the money's being targeted to a specific area, like property taxes.
Yeah, well, that is the
But
question, yeah.
that discussion has not come that far because we haven't even had the open discussion on the bill yet, so.
Okay.
Aaron, thanks for stepping in. One thing that the board talked about here at our last meeting is we're going to file a federal lawsuit. Basically what we've looked at and we've all determined here is that this is a discriminatory tax against property owners. It's no different than if we said we're only going to tax blacks or Mexicans or Polacks or whatever you want to call them, okay? It discriminates against property owners. Property owners are the basis and the foundation for this country. Right now, we've taken that so far out of the hands of our children and our grandchildren because they can't even foresee coming in and buying a home. It's not that they can't afford the interest and the principal. It's the taxes that are killing them. They can't even afford the taxes on the homes. They can put a down payment together. They can come up with all these different funding formulas and federal funding programs. But it's still not going to keep them in that home and keep them safe and give them the ability to say, I'm a homeowner in Pennsylvania. How can you expect to put down roots if you can't own your own home, if you're going to be forced to stay a renter? So we're going to file a federal lawsuit, and what we're going to do is we're looking at contacting all the state senators, all the state representatives, asking them what their views are on Senate Bill 76 and House Bill 76, how they're going to vote, what they oppose in the bill, and what they propose would make them sign that bill. We want to know what they're thinking, because we've got all these, what is it, you would know the numbers, is it 84 senators or something like that we have? And
There were 84 co-sponsors, I've representatives. Senators, I'm not sure off the top of my head how many there were.
you know, but of the total number between the senators and the representatives, we want to find out what their feelings are on this, where they're going with this, because each and every one of them, if they're opposed to this, they're not doing their job for us. We elect our representatives to go to Harrisburg, we elect our representatives to go to Washington and do for us what we don't want to do. We don't want to be politicians. We like what we do for a living, and you as a politician like what you do for a living, but you're also there to represent us, and so are the rest of them. And if they're not going to do what we want them to do, then we're going to take them and we're going to sue them for performance. They're breaking their oath to us. They said that they would go and represent us, and they're not representing the will of the people, and that's why we're going to file a lawsuit. And it's going to be a discriminatory tax.
I'm not going to, I don't think it's the right way of suing the politicians themselves. I'm not saying that because I'm a representative. I think it's an issue of the state as a whole. It's not individual representatives, it's the state policy. It's a policy issue. It's not individuals. I mean, the will of the people is their vote. I mean, you can't, bringing that brings into the whole idea of democracy, and is democracy legal? That's really what.
No, democracy's mob rule. That's the problem. We're a republic. You know, you pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it
Constitutional
stands.
republic.
Right, and I agree.
And
But
the republic,
Democracies, go back and read Plato's work.
But I'm a political theory guy. I've read Plato plenty of times. Me personally, I think it's not the individual representatives, senators, governor. I don't think it's any of those people. I think it's the policy itself that you're going after.
but who has the power to change that policy? Our elected representatives, correct?
Right, I agree.
So the only thing that we can do is hold our feet to the fire and say, look, if you don't do what we want you to do, then we're going to take you as an accomplice to this because it's theft by deception, it's conversion of assets, they're stealing our homes, and that's conversion, and that's illegal.
Well, like I said, I think the target of what you're saying is the policy, not the individual.
But the individual has to change the policy.
Oh, I agree.
So there it is. If you're not going to stand up and do what we want you to do and change the policy the way we want it done, then you have to be held accountable because we can't change the policy.
Well, that's the whole point of what running for office and getting elected and things like that. You know, you bring in a lot of things that are tied together, but it's the policy itself. And I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I definitely think what you're talking about is the policy end of things. The policy is wrong. I think the way that you're trying to go about it is a little skewed in the way of the policy is the problem, right? Because, for instance, do you want to sue Jim Cox, the guy who introduces the legislation every time?
No, because he's going to give us
But
a
that's the
reason
thing.
why.
There's
You
no.
guys that keep fighting it and keep trying to push it off, and like Mueller, yeah, he wants 4 more years, so his pension's intact.
Well,
We know that you're not there for the pension. You've told us that. You're not going to
Yeah, I
continue to
declined
run
the pension.
and make a career out of this. So you're in it for the people that you're representing. But the other ones have made careers out of being politicians, and they like the benefits that they voted for themselves. And who are they taking that out of? Whose pocket is that coming out of? Our pocket.
No, and I absolutely agree in the fact that I personally believe, property. If you take the perspective where property taxes came from, they came before there were income taxes, right? Because income taxes were deemed too intrusive. They were unfair and unconstitutional according to before.
And they still are, according to the Supreme Court.
But the issue was that you would have a tax assessor come to your land and say, you have this many acres of land that you could use, this is your tax bill. So it was based on actually producing and production out of your land. I don't think we're producing a lot out of the homes we live in today's environment, especially in this area. We're not farming on our lands. We're not making money off our lands. It's not our basis of income. We work somewhere else. We don't make money off our houses in today's society. But the tax structure, which is still in place, is based on the idea that we are making money on our property. Yeah,
So it was really an income tax.
it was a way of taxing your ability of production. That's exactly what it was. From the 1880s, that's when this was around. We still have the tax in place. We don't have the production out of our homes currently. It's just a problematic system at the very least. So the problem is that with 76 that we're talking about is using income tax and consumption tax, sales tax, to offset property tax. Much like before income tax were too intrusive, we're fighting the argument the exact opposite. Property taxes are too intrusive. So I think there's an interesting historical context to what's going on right now of property taxes versus income taxes. Lots changed in 150 years. So I think we're before the exact opposite now. We're flipping because that production doesn't come from our homes like it did previously. And we, for the most part, we realize that funding government should for the basic mostly. The idea that
Aaron, I'm not here to attack you.
No, I know,
I know you're on our side.
But I do because you've made that comment before, that's all. That with income taxes, to be a more fair system of taxing, based on how much you're actually producing and earning, actual versus perceived. And that's the difference. Somebody else had a question, I'm sorry.
Well,
Yes,
basically what he said is correct then, because it's outdated.
yes,
So it has to be changed.
it's an
Because me
antiquated
myself,
system.
I retired in 4 years, I can't pay the same amount of taxes I've been paying as I work.
Yep.
So right there, I'll probably lose my house in 10 years. The rate they're going now, I'll lose my property, where am I gonna live? In the box? So I mean, it has to change.
Mhm.
It has to for everybody's sake, not just my sake, yours, it's everybody.
Yeah.
Because it's unfair.
I agree. But I think with every discussion, we should realize the history of that too. It's very important to this dialogue.
Correct.
It was before income taxes, because that was too intrusive.
Correct.
You know, that was the means of production, was people's land, their property.
And one question I had before you leave. The pension reform, is there reform coming in the future for state pensions?
Yes,
Because this can't go on.
yes, there is.
Great.
There's several proposals out there. I don't want to dive into them too much.
Right.
Because most of them haven't even been, they're being considered in the Senate right now. The Senate has really been leading the charge on pensions. There is some stuff introduced in the House and a couple different measures. There's a lot of them out there. We'll see what happens.
You might know, I know people work for the state, they're a police officer, state police. They retire at 42 years old and you're paying for the rest of your life their pensions, tied up by thousands. How could you do this?
It's especially a big issue right now with state police going on, the
Correct.
pensions we have now.
And
Because,
teachers too.
because if we sort of remember what happened with the Eric Freed case recently,
Right.
and a lot of overtime, and
Right.
based on your highest earned years is your retirement.
Right.
And right now, for a lot of people, it was because of all the overtime people just collected. There's been some speculation that there will be a massive retirement coming forward
Yeah.
because of the amount of overtime paid to state troopers over the manhunt for Eric Freed.
Well, I mean, it's constant, because I see people right now, I know personally, state troopers that retired very young. They have other jobs, they're holding down jobs making good money that other people can have, and that's their chump money, that's the deal drinking with that money. Or go to a casino with that money. That's not fair to people like us paying taxes, that they can retire at 42, like some people do, teachers, not jealous, I couldn't care less, but be fair about it. We have to live too. And it can't go on forever, it can't, it has to stop, because our kids are gonna suffer in the long run. We'll be dead and gone, like you said, we'll be dead and gone.
Well, I'm gonna wrap it up here.
Thank you,
Thanks for having me, everybody. I'm glad I could.
thanks for
See you
talking.
tomorrow night.
Thank you
See you
for being
tomorrow.
here.
Thank you. Hey, you're here, give a picture, you're gonna have it open up tomorrow, so you're going late.
I gotta run.
Take
I'm
care.
already running late.
Oh, I agree.
Once you run late once through the day.
No, that's right
Want
though.
to mention
Oh, sure. I just want to let everybody know I have an open house going on tomorrow at my district office in Luzerne. It's 161 Main Street in Luzerne. You've got the card right there. Everybody's welcome. We'll be doing a ribbon cutting at 4:30, 5 to 7. We'll have some light refreshments, and it'll be a nice time. So you're more than welcome to stop by. If you want to talk more, I'm willing to talk tomorrow. Unfortunately, now I got to run, so I apologize. But good seeing everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
I want to just